do you have a stack by accident or by design? That is the exact definition of what I call an immature or a mature MarTech strategy. And you can only have a mature stack if you know what you're doing, if you know how you serve the customer. What goal? Retention, acquisition. And if you do this, you always have to ask yourself one question. What if I don't do it? What revenue will I lose? You cannot automate what you haven't standardized in your process. And you cannot standardize what you have not defined in your strategy. So bloated stacks often relate to not too much of a strategy, not clearly defined, or it's clearly defined but not actionable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our Marketing Insider series. And we have the guest here, Frans Riemersma. I mean, he needs no introduction. He's the founder of Martech Tribe, and he's the co-publisher of martechmap.com and the brain behind one of the largest independent, Martech benchmarking databases in the world. He has helped global brands like HP, Adidas, and Audi right-size their stacks, boost adoption, and drive revenue. Not just with more tools, but with a smarter stack. What makes Frans different is that he doesn't speak in vague marketing technology trends. He shows the leaders exactly where the marketing waste is hiding, marketing automation waste is hiding, and how to fix it fast. So so in this Q&A, we are diving into how high performance map the tech stacks around real moments in the customer journey especially, and why most Gen AI efforts miss that mark, and what the smartest CMOs are doing to future-proof with composable architecture. We will even unpack what the rise of AI agents means for your marketing team structure, and how to make sure you are not scaling chaos, but you are doing it deliberately. And if you want real example, usable frameworks, and zero fluff, stick around to this video. I'm sure this will be of great help to you. And so thank you so much, Frans. It's an honor to have you here. Thanks for joining us. A little brief about you can help, maybe to our new viewers.
My name is Frans Riemersma, as you said, background in marketing, but I started coding pretty early in my days, which is end of last century, 96, 97. Sounds ancient, but I always felt these two worlds come together.
Right.
It's undeniable. You can't avoid it. So how to embrace it? And I've always been very interested in how to get most use out of technology. And for many people, technology is still daunting or a magic wand or whatever, but the true value is, what does it do for your customer?
Absolutely, yeah, can't agree more with that. All right, so I think we can jump into the question number one over here. It's more about tool overloads, I would say. Yeah. So many marketing teams, Frans, I think they are quietly dealing with the bloated stacks, whether those tools brought in a rush, maybe it's brought up because of someone's ego, overlapping functions, or half of them being badly used. Now you have worked with thousands of MarTech stacks and seen where those kind of waste hides, right? And when a company is balancing both acquisition and retention, we would like to know, how do you think that they should rethink what performance really means in MarTech today? I'm not talking just about the metrics, but I'm talking about creating that long-term value out of the marketing stack that companies operates. Yeah.
Very good question. Yeah. So I think you said it earlier. You touched upon it. For me, there's always this feeling of, do you have a stack by accident or by design? And that is the exact definition of what I call an immature or a mature MarTech strategy. And you can only have a mature stack if you know what you're doing, if you know how you serve the customer. What goal? Retention, acquisition. And if you do this, you always have to ask yourself one question. What if I don't do it? What revenue will I lose? And what happens then is that it becomes quite simple. There are some feature sets that are super business critical. And other ones you go like, I don't really need them. So if we benchmark companies, we always start at a strategic level. And the first level is always a simple question, three questions. What is your self-assessed maturity from the scale from 1 to 5 on your strategy, on your process, skills, people, org chart, and your technology? And this insight is the least asked for and the most loved. It's the one that resonates most. Because here's the secret. If you have a maturity in your technology that is higher than your strategy or your process, you're in deep trouble. You have a bloated stack. And I can give you a nice example. I had this company, it was a company from Silicon Valley, and they had like 14 tools to collaborate. I'm talking about Slack and Trello and basically all good tools in themselves. 14. So I went like, looking at that, I said, you cannot, automate what you haven't standardized in your process. And you cannot standardize what you have not defined in your strategy. Who's your customer? What is your target? So I said, it's very clear to me that your strategy is not clearly defined. Because why else would you have 14 tools to support people in crowded meetings? And they said, how do you know? I said, I can tell. You must have crowded meetings with a lot of people taking notes, meeting minutes, transcriptions, and go back and forth because there's no strategy. If there's a strategy, you don't need all those meetings and all those tools.
Right.
Because it's clear. It's like marching orders. We're going to for this big, hairy, audacious goal or North Star or whatever. And that is the thing. So bloated stacks often relate to not, too much of a strategy, not clearly defined, or it's clearly defined but not actionable. So the people in the teams and the pros go, I don't know what to do. So and this is, here we go. Talking about acquisition and retention. I teach at business schools and universities. 9 out of 10 times they come to me, we need more leads. Why? Because they're marketing. But if you look at it, I think marketing is not just lead gen, it's much more than that. It's the brand and everything in between. So if you look at that, you see that if you dissect it, especially B2B is more focused on bottom of funnel and B2C more top of funnel, more awareness and making sure. So the acquisition, and I always explain, do you really need more leads? And then when they do the math, just going into their data, and this is a simple Excel sheet exercise, just download the stuff from your CRM, compare it with your lead gen list, and then see, and then suddenly they see a funnel like, oh my God, there's a lot of leads, but it doesn't trickle down in the funnel. That's your problem. So this is, and then suddenly you look differently at your stack and at your tools, and you go, like, but then I don't need all those acquisition tools. Or lead gen tools. So these are very important. If you go down, it's much more closing the deal, right? In B2C, this is in a shop or e-commerce. There you have a different stack. And for B2B, it's more account-based marketing. Right. It's more like buying committees. That's a different ballgame. So you have to be very clear about it. I now picture it very high level. But if you go down, you will have razor sharp view on what are we doing. And this is a final comment on this. The difference between the mature and the immature stack is daring to make decisions.
Right.
And that's what I often see. If you don't take decisions, you end up with 14 collaboration tools.
Noted, Frans. And being a B2B marketer for most of my life, when I hear you saying that B2C is more of an awareness and B2B is more of a bottom of the funnel, I even start considering whether I should change my role into B2C.
I can imagine in the top there's also B2B work to be done, of course, your brand and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, jokes apart, I completely agree to that. And yes, that's something I can relate to as well. And yeah, so and the next question would be around ROI. It's surprisingly common for even the most senior leaders to have a very clear view into what part of their tech spend is actually driving the growth. I saw you have built maybe like 414 plus Martech ROI benchmarks that map tools to business value. Uh, if you could walk us through how you tie tech tools directly to revenue outcomes, especially what should a marketing leader measure and look at the first, you know, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like your question. So, as an exercise in some time ago, we looked at anecdotal ROIs. So and created a Martech map for ROI, and it was just really amazing because especially personalization stood out. There are so many, but the thing is, the secret is in the word anecdotal. So what works for you doesn't have to work for me or my business. It's very different. So you have to learn to understand how to calculate an ROI. And here it goes. Don't ever create an ROI about software. Because software is about making stuff less bad. That's efficiency, doing the things right. That's not where the money is, and that's not how you convince any CFO or CEO. So flip it and go back to the roots of what a company is about, the customer. So now talk about effectiveness, the right things. And if you do that, I've done this now at the business school university. They're participants, those are marketers, sometimes CMOs, 20 years in their job. We dig deep into all their data, customer data. And it's not like data science to the max. We don't even have a team. This is just often one person. It's in the evenings, they do this stuff on top of their job. But within a 3-month time period, they are masters of their customer. They know exactly what their customers want. And it's no magic, it's common sense.
Right.
Common sense that we normally don't do because we're caught up in Teams meetings, frequent with 14 tools.
Yeah.
So that's the wrong end of the stick. And I think that is the real secret of an ROI. And if you look then at not a software ROI, but I call it a customer business case, then suddenly you will see a 10-fold better outcome ratio. On average, for every euro that my participants asked from management, because they had to present it to their management and board, for every dollar or euro they asked, they could give 16 back. 16. Okay. And they didn't buy a tool, they didn't do a big data science project, just by common sense looking at, okay, these are the data points, there's some gaps in here, I have to make assumptions. What is this client trying to do with our tool? And what are they understanding from what we're saying? So the product and the promotion. And then that gives already so much clarity, but it's an exercise we're not used to do. Somehow we're trained educated in marketing at universities, and then we forget about it, so it seems. But that's the core, and that's more marketing than just MarTech. Now, a final comment on that. I think AI will change a lot because AI commoditizes software. So we're not so much distracted anymore. So now there's no escape. We have to look at the customer and the data. What is the customer telling us? Because customers talk to us through the data. Because They click or they don't. They like or they don't. And see the numbers, see where it's out of whack and what it's telling you. And then it's all, I tell the business school is be a Sherlock Holmes with a pit bull mentality. Find it out. It's your customer, it's your revenue.
Right. And one follow-up question on that. What do you mean exactly by commoditizing? I mean, the tech stack becomes commoditized. I mean, after the AI revolution.
Yeah, well, what is happening is that there are a lot of AI coding tools emerging, which means, ChatGPT, right?
Right.
Or Gemini or Claude. You just type in it. So imagine a split screen where you have on the one hand this prompt and on the right-hand side, it's building your app. It's building your app. Right now, I would say these tools are in their infancy. And one of the founders of one of those tools said it very nicely: treat it as a junior engineer for now. But a year ago, it wasn't even a junior. So it is now. So you can see where it's going. This means that we might even enter, and this is what Scott Brink and I described as instant software. I mean, maybe we can even go into an era where you can quickly build something and you don't need a big tool.
Right.
Imagine if you think about customer business cases, they're not like 50 magic moments before they buy. Thank God, no. They're like 3 to 5. Why buy a tool for that? Why not build an agent? I'm exaggerating, but this is where in the next 3 to 5 years it could go. So that is what I mean. AI is further commoditizing software. One more thing. Somebody said the other day, the most used programming language is no longer C# or PHP or what have you, Python. It is English, because you prompt it into existence.
More of a conversation rather than a coding.
There you go. And so everybody can do it. So in the future, I think a marketer will no longer need tech skills or whatever, or even HTML. It's just build me this. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's not about big tools. It's always those micro features, because 20% of the features bring 80% of the value.
Yeah.
You have to know which 20%.
Got it. So friends, one more thing around, when we shift from funnel to Genie-aware thinking, legacy Martech models still emphasize linear funnels. However, in real world, customer behavior is anything but. You have spoken about mapping stacks around the journeys itself, not just a functional categories, right? Do you see a shift from traditional funnel-based Martech thinking to a more dynamic journey-aware approach? Is that something you forecast or foresee coming?
Yeah, of course, people are trying to think in journeys, but the funnel is still prevalent. I wish I could show you the cartoon of Marketoonist, where there's this marketer standing in front of a funnel and pointing at, you are here, because this lady with a shopping cart is driving by, and she looks at him and said, actually, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm not in that funnel. So we're completely off in terms of the funnel is not it's an internal thing, and it's okay to measure, to track and KPI, but it's not really good to understand the customer. So journeys are more important, and especially I think those moments of truth. So what I found with those, so we've done some 40, 50 plans now with real life data at the business school. And what we see is what I started to call, you need to have best of feature, best of data, and best of content. And you need 3 to 5 pieces for each. So you don't need like 1 million data points. Like we connect everything with everything. Right. That is not managing a stack by design. It's more a panic attack. So what I would say is there are 3 to 5 data points. Maybe you explored like 1,000, but it trickles down to only these 3 to 5 to create your KPIs. 3 to 5 features, buttons, things that should work. And then 3 to 5 content items, like maybe a LinkedIn ad, an email piece, and a landing page. And that's it. And that you optimize that. There are variations. So you optimize the hell out of that. But not like, I need a tool that can cater for all the personalized landing pages for all the products we have. That's a panic attack, right? That has nothing to do with designing something around your customer. That is actually a reason for me to ask, do you know your customer? And I must say, Balaji, very, very often marketers don't know who the customer is.
Totally.
And it's a simple question. So what is your biggest customer in terms of revenue? What product is most sold to that audience? And what's the margin? That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
And if I wake you up in the middle of the night, and trust me, I won't, but if I would, that's the question I would ask. And you, even sleep drunk, spit it out.
Yes, and something always on top of the head for us, no? Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Great. So again, rethinking performance in MarTech. Do you think there is a need for organizations to reframe how MarTech spending aligns, not just with near-term funnel wins, but with deeper, long-term customer values? Because it feels like a shift that's waiting to be articulated more clearly, and I couldn't think of anyone else other than you would do it. So the question is that, do you think there is a need for organizations to reframe how MarTech spending aligns? I'm not talking about
Yes.
just a quick wins or near-term funnel wins, but my question is around how can it deeper long-term customer value? How can it create that long-term customer value?
I love your question. And here's a bold statement. I might not agree with myself in a couple of months from now, but for now it feels like, why do we need a MarTech budget? What you need is a budget for an experience.
Right.
So we make sure there's one person owning an experience, like a credit card renewal, right? That's a very important thing. And talking about retention, that's where people drop off. Yet, try to renew it if you lost it. I mean, it's not always a straightforward process. Why not? This is your core business. So, and many times I see that these journeys are not in place. If you have this in place, then you will have a budget for the content, the data, and the technology embedded. That's one thing, because we know if we have that, and then we will have the revenue linked to that, specific. I've seen a nice case about, insurance renewals, all that kind of stuff with my participants. Yeah, this is how you set up a budget. It's an integrated thing. It's not isolated. Having a MarTech budget, I understand. We think software, so you need, but it's weird.
So, for example, if a CRM manager had a bad boss and he really needs to say that, what is your advice to them?
Well, this is a culture change, and you ask me for long term and how that would change. Then I think this is the direction it might change, and I see outperformers sometimes do this.
Right.
But in terms of we're really paralyzed sometimes by software, and then it's like I'm in CRM, I'm an email manager. Yeah, that's alienating you from the customer. So. I would recommend this, and this happens, by the way. Now it suddenly comes back to me. I had this participant, toy factory, and they said, we need a CDP. I said, okay, so why? Then we know our customer. Well, I hope you know your customer already, right? No, but it's all over the place, all these systems, and it will integrate it. Okay, and what will you know then? What is it you? And we started unpacking, and it turned out they didn't really need a CDP. Ultimately, they bought one module from one CDP to support it. Like I said, the 20% of the entire tool, which brought maybe 80% of the value. So and this is something sometimes scaring vendors. Right. I'm not saying they only should buy 3 features from you and that's only a third of the price. It could even double your current product license fee. Because the high impact, the high value for that company is gigantic. And I've been on the side of a MarTech vendor. So I worked for a MarTech vendor. Okay. It's all about value-based selling. So what value are you selling? And it's, what revenue do you bring in? And if it's 3 buttons that bring, $1 million, then that is high value, and you can, license that in a way. And I think this is what will happen also with AI agents and the micro SaaS wave coming up. Yeah,
totally. And I think the marketing automation platforms themselves is building an integrated CDPs as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing, maturity. So if you're not so mature, don't start building stuff. Right. Buy stuff. So I always say buy to learn, build to scale. Right. And then you get, allow yourself a learning curve. And I see very often that we buy software, but blindly, and then hoping that the heavens open suddenly, magic. Got it. If you don't know what you want or need, then software is not going to do anything for you. So,
Got it. So yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to know about CDP. And the another thing is that's a point where a constant testing becomes a trap by itself, right? People over test something and that becomes a trap for themselves to get out of it. Um, when teams iterate endlessly but never scale what works, you have seen where that loop creates the drag in operations and tech fatigue. In fact, while reading about the hack pack model you have written in the report, I was wondering, do teams sometimes get stuck there? Uh, get stuck by constantly testing, but forget that they have to scale it at some point of time. Would love to hear if you have seen ways leaders organize and break out of that loop, and what is that, aha moment that they need to realize that enough is enough. You have done enough testing, and now it's time to roll out and to hit the ground running. So maybe you share an example where something started as a lightweight hack but matured into a very critical part of that stack. Any thoughts around that?
Good question. Love it. Sharp, because endless testing is a sign of something.
Right.
It says you don't know what success looks like. You don't know what goal you're working towards to. So when I worked for this Martech vendor, we had a global reach. It was a German company. It's now an American company. And that was, I always created a gap list. And a gap is what is missing between the launch and today. And I always eliminated easily 80% of that. How? By looking at the business. What are we trying to solve? Which customers, and you see analysis paralysis there in endless testing.
Right.
And the way out, you asked, is the hackback stack approach. Sounds like it's official, but it's just, for me, always helping me. So when you start, you have you don't buy software to solve everything. Software has different, purposes at different times. So I never think we have a CRM forever. It's now this CRM, and it might change. And this I see from my research in banking. That's 20 years, 30 years, because it's so much linked to the financial system. They're really embedded. Also telcos normally, but other sectors you see them swap 3 to 5 years. So, and that's okay. So you need to make sure your technology grows with you, grows with your maturity, grows with the maturity of your customer journeys. Now here it is. Changing a credit card, like we used before, that should be really in the stack phase. Something humming, buzzing at the background. Often it's not, but it should be. It's production.
Right.
And production requires predictability, scalability.
Yeah.
This is where IT is very strong. IT is really good at that. No surprises, predictability, and make sure it works.
Yeah.
In marketing, on the other end, there's nothing predictable because we're not in a platform market fit. We're in a problem market fit. We don't even know what the customer really, really wants. So as long as we don't experiment there, and this is where I say this is the hack phase. So you need to growth hack and find out what works. And you have, now I'm not talking about experimenting and testing your tool. I'm talking about testing and experimenting a business case or a journey, an experience. And once you find traction, this is just like a startup, thinking like a startup. Once you found traction, you tried 100 things. Is this Edison thing like 999 things that didn't work, blah, blah. That, if you find it, then you know exactly, okay, this is, making it tick. Now you don't give it to IT because that will completely piss them off.
Yeah.
Because it's a mess. It's a prototype. And this is what I see happening. So now you go into your, okay, let's now buy a proper tool to do this stuff, or combination of tools. And this is what I call the pack phase. Packaging is more like, okay, now we've got this dirty prototype, which is generating already revenue. Now let's see which data points we don't really need, which fields, which integrations, which technology or buttons. Strip it. And then until you strip it, then you have a clean thing you can hand over to IT. And these are three different roles in companies normally. It's marketing, marketing operations, and IT. And what I see too often today is that IT and marketing are battling, having their separate budgets for IT. I understand that, but it would be great if there's some kind of handover, a process for that. Hack, pack, and stack. And that is what I see outperformers do. They do this not, in the way I just described, but they do a lot of those things really well.
Right. And I catch one point what you have said. If we strip and come to the simplest essence of finding what actually works, then I think it's so much no-brainer to change those tags and all these things, right?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love what you say. So one of my clients said, Frans, we're building, and they asked me to help them out, we're building a plug-and-play architecture, which is composable, right?
Okay.
Lego blocks. And we're starting to implement one rule here. We only work, and they were a market leader, so they had a kind of a stake in many things, but they could impose on vendors, software vendors, and say, we're not going to work with you if you don't show us how we can decommission you. You have to tell us how we switch you off, meaning the data and the users. How do we migrate that stuff? Otherwise, we won't do it.
That's the toughest question anyone can face.
But it is, I think, maybe in 10 years, let's do another podcast in 10 or 5 years from now, Balaji, and look back and say, hey, it's now, common. Everybody
Right.
does it.
True, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So friends, there is a lot of buzz around composability, like you have mentioned, but most teams don't know where to start. You have been one of the very loudest and clearest voice globally on what a composable martech stack actually looks like in practice. Especially maybe you have worked with giant companies like HP and Adidas. For a marketing leader, hearing this and wanting to future-proof their stack, what's the very first step to move towards composability, and what things they need to avoid?
So buying a composable CDP or composable CMS is not doing the trick. Composable CDPs and CMS are amazing. Don't get me wrong. But that's not composability. Okay. Thinking in a composable way is Lego blocks. Which ones do I need? Like the best of data, the best of feature. And the only way you can do that is by what I always say, look at the customer, follow the money. 80-20 rule. Where do we make 80%? So you cannot make your stack overnight composable. You have to go gradual, and it can go parallel, and that's all fine. So look at that 80-20 rule. And it's interesting. If you look at, for instance, all the data you have, then if you look at the most important client, then suddenly you only need this data. Yeah. And then for the product they buy most, it's only this. Right. And suddenly you have a part where you go like, let's make that composable. Let's, buy those features or you reuse. Oftentimes, right. People already have the software in place. Right. It's just not configured well or configured around those business cases, what the customer really wants. So if you have that 80-20, and then you start with that one, and if you make it small, interestingly enough, you get already this return of $1 to $16.
Okay.
Making it so small, and this is where I talked about making decisions is hard. It's so counterintuitive that we make it small, yeah, but it has the biggest impact. And it hasn't happened yet that a CEO from all the participants in the business school said, no, I don't want $16 for that $1. I mean, they all want this. I've had even people that said, Frans, I have to do my final exam with you in a month's time, but I'm done already. It's adopted. I have to start implementing. So it's that successful. But it's crazy, and it's that simple, like you just said. Right. So start with one case, one customer, one case, and try to do it there with a small team. Don't have big teams. 1 or 2 or 3 people. Try to keep it simple, right. and then you can make very quick learning curves. And then the magic happens after that. Once you've done that for one, you go to another region or another product, and you see like, hey, 80% is the same. there's a little bit difference here. Let's cater for that. And you tweak it, and there you go. Now imagine if you don't do all of this, you end up in endless testing because all the exceptions, I don't know, you know. And if you take it step by step, you know exactly what exception you can document it, you can share it, you can make somebody owner of it, and then grow.
Great, great, great. Perfect. Yeah, so I got your point. Like maybe in your own terms, what do you call as a truly composable, platform for that sake? Because as for me, I'm not much into the CDPs and don't have that deep value in it, knowledge in it. I mean to say, given for example, if you take a platform like HubSpot, like you can integrate whatever you can think of, right? So that makes me wonder, like, at least to give the viewers an understanding of if they need to chase the composable, then what actually is truly composable.
One of the things I look at first, if I do stack benchmarks for my clients, I don't only, I first look at the integration page,
Right.
not at the feature page. Because features resemble a lot, but the integrations are so important. And then do they not only integrate with many other tools, but also with your tools and with iPaaS, integration platform as a service. So Zapier, Workado, all those type of tools. And you want to know, does that integrate well? This is the first level, I would say, of like HubSpot does of composability. Another one is, an example is High Touch.
Okay.
High Touch is a CDP and they call themselves Composable, but they really live this composability. They even have composable pricing. So they say, we understand you don't buy a platform, you buy bits and pieces. And if you need ID stitching, then here is our ID stitching. If you need device resolution, then here it is.
Right.
And that is composability at its finest, I would say.
Right.
On top, they don't have all complex things. They are just plugged in directly on a cloud data warehouse, on the data, the company data. And they can work with that immediately. So they're not, reinventing and becoming a new data warehouse embedded, etc. Because then you get these claims like the only tool you need. That's insane. You need many tools to be. So composability makes it more fine-grained. And people think it's more complex sometimes. You're like, all those tools, now it's even more. No. You know exactly which tool does exactly what. So it's now a stack by design. And then there's clarity. More than, I need more tools, 14 collaboration tools. That's not clarity.
Got that. Instead of, jumping here and there, that clarity in understanding what tool does what is very important.
And a simple question here, Balaji, simple tip. What can you switch off? That's always my first question.
Okay.
And then you go, what do you mean? What can you switch off without processes breaking down that bring revenue? Mm-hmm. That's it.
Right.
And then suddenly you go like, oh, actually, well, this tool, John, but he retired, was doing this, and now Angela is taking over, but actually we don't need it. She can do better things than that. There you go. But these questions you have to ask. You have to, a stack, Martech, is never done.
Yeah.
And that's not because software changes fast. No, customers change and competition changes.
Right. And I think I would like to pinpoint that these questions we should not be asking to the customer support people of those companies. We should be asking to the internal teams to get that real answers we are looking for, right? Yeah.
100%.
Great. And that piece you have written about the incumbent players, the challengers, that piece really got me, Frans. New platforms designed for AI native or modular use or really gaining attention these days. But it's still very unclear where they drive real fit. You have mapped adoption patterns across industries and know which use cases would stick, right? So challenger platforms, especially those built natively with AI or modularity in mind, I think they seem to be catching attention. But I also wonder who they actually work for. Have you noticed whether any certain industries or departments or functions where these kind of tools are really making a mark? So could you please share that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when Gen AI came up 2 or 3 years ago, Scott and I ask ourselves, okay, how will it impact, and where? So we send out surveys, and we found out there basically the as you call it, the AI challengers and incumbent embracing AI. What we see is that we thought, there's a lot of those one-day flies, right? Of the challengers, which is not true, because this year we did our homework again, looking at our own data, and we saw that 1,200 tools went bust.
Oh my God.
1,200. And
Okay.
we looked at each other, yeah, of course, that was the Gen AI hype. It's, the one-day flies. Not true. Because what happened is that we looked at how, when were those tools that went bust founded. And they were founded 5 to 10 years ago.
Oh.
So there's no Gen AI included there, because that's only 2 to 3 years. So we were like stunned, like, what's going on? So they're pretty sticky. And they are, of course, in the area of content creation and transcriptions and that kind of stuff. And also content, not so much creation production, but more ideation. And that you see more in the B2C above the line type of stuff. You also see it in B2B, but a lot in... one thing is very interesting about AI, and Gen AI especially, is that it's was actually made to answer questions if you give it unstructured data.
Okay.
Hence, maybe a bag of leads. And tell me, what do you see? And do you see a structure? And tell me some. So lead mining, lead intelligence is actually something like sales automation, sales enablement, is actually something where it's really powerful. True. We're not using it a lot, as we see in our research, but it's definitely there. So the whole lead mining in sales automation, sales support, maybe even account-based marketing type of stuff, but also drilling in data. It's not doing calculations. That we all know this. It's not that good still, but might get there at some point. But also to look at data, what do you see? Clusters. So it's very powerful there, and I think that's where you see B2B more benefiting. And I don't know if you see this every now and then, that people build these AI agents just around making sure you comment on your social media page, right? Or you select those. Or once people do this, they comment or like it, you extract their profile and see if they fit in your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Right. And then you give them the AI agent the task to send an email, customized, personalized. So those are, really different use cases that are coming up.
Got it. And so one more question about lifecycle mapping. High performance teams, they're not just focusing on acquisition. They design for full life execution, right? And including retentions and even like loyalty, win backs and all. So you have seen this in stacks that prioritize customers' priority over just the conversion flow. So I would like to know, Frans, when you look at the teams that do this so well, how do they tend to map their stack around onboarding, retention, and reactivations?
So I see this with outperformers, and I don't see it with the low performers.
Okay.
And what's the difference?
Yeah.
Team structure.
Okay.
So the outperformers put together marketing, sales, and customer support, because then you know from A to Z what's happening, and then reverse engineer. And the low performers normally, have everything in isolation. So then we do acquisition and we just, shove some leads to the other side. Oftentimes I ask them, so what is an SQL, a sales qualified lead? What is an MQL? Have you defined it? Low performers often don't define it. They just shove, and then sales don't use them because they say they're not usable. Right or wrong, I don't know. But they never have this conversation. Mm-hmm. In outperformer stacks and environments, these teams sit together. They know from each other, like, this is the handover moment. Now you take it from here. This is the beautiful lead you want, you need. Go get them. And then it goes to customer support in the end, because we have not. So I think these guys have more what I call a use case, business case, capability driven approach.
Right.
regardless of, because the customer doesn't care if you
Right.
are in marketing or sales support. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense, Frans. Yeah. And regarding the AI agents, and while you were talking about the team structure, there is this emerging idea that future marketing organizations will include AI agents. Of course, we cannot deny that. But
Yep.
as a teammates, automating the tasks, optimizing campaigns in real time, especially the agent force thing is trending up. You posted about that viral AI organizational chart very recently, and it really stuck with me. What changes when AI agents become part of the team, and what do leaders need to start doing now to prepare their organizations and workflows for that kind of shift?
Yeah, it was in the weekend that I was just scrolling through my LinkedIn. And I was like, what's going on here? And there was this guy from Silicon Valley, has a startup, and he has an AI coding startup. So, and that tool, he said, I'm co-founder, head of marketing of one, and 40 AI agents. And the AI agents were laid out as an org chart. And then it hit me. It's like, this is the org chart of the future. This is
Yeah.
it. And with my benchmark data, I can now generate exactly that org chart for any industry, and for, to make sure that you know what capabilities are important. And that's the word, capability. So what you see is that we can see which MarTech and capabilities drive most value
Right.
for outperformers. So that's something low performers can learn from. And the capabilities are now like blending. It's no longer like I need a tool, I need this. It is, if you look at that org chart, some of those blocks like newsletter subscription or event management, something, and then they unpack it. It's really nice because you see in some cases you need more technology than maybe people, because it's, on autopilot, like your nurturing flows. But events is a bit more hands-on, so you have more skills and more team. But I would still put it in that same org chart, because you know exactly what functions you're doing for the customer, and then reverse engineer into, okay, I need people, I need skills, I need teams, and there you go. In some of those blocks, you're more immature, and So maybe try this junior AI agent for now, and then maybe that's the hacking part. Once it's grown, now put it in a pack and a stack, and then hand over to IT. I don't know if AI coding will ever replace IT type of stuff. That I don't dare to say. Maybe it will become one day so sophisticated, but for now I would say IT really has to have a grip, and they would agree, of course. But that is how the org chart of the future, I think, would look like. And I already have clients now asking for, can you create such an org chart? And the thing is then, for every block or column, you can make people responsible, just like a normal org chart.
Right. Yeah. And regarding the benchmarking stacks, many teams assume their stack is working fine until someone shows them what top performers are actually doing, right? That kind of hallucination is there, I believe. You have built the largest independent MarTech benchmark database out there, which is very impressive. Over 1,500 stacks. I was literally zooming in and zooming in. It goes on and on. I think you have to release a, megapixel kind of image for actually see every software in that. So when you are working with a brand, Frans, what are the most surprising insights that come out of benchmarking? And how should leaders use such kind of data to drive real change in their teams?
The most stunning insight is keep it simple. I had a client in the States. It was a bank, and I looked at their numbers, because we're looking at outperformers, underperformers. Outperformers, we look at the revenue per employee ratio. That's really a very solid metric by industry.
Right.
And stacks vary by industry very much. So I showed them my analysis, and they said, Frans, you're showing us what outperformers do, and your data is wrong. I was like, okay, enlighten me, tell me. They're doing basic stuff. I said, yes, exactly.
Right.
They fixed the foundation first. So you guys now come to me for a headless, composable, data-driven CDP, but your CRM is broken. How do
Right.
you want on earth to build that on top of that? It's creating more mess.
True.
This is what outperformers don't do. Oh, so they don't use the latest, greatest software. Yes, they do. They experiment, hack. They don't stack yet.
Yeah.
They're not there. They know when they're there.
Yeah.
But and the same with AI. They're experimenting carefully in labs, and then they know now it can go to IT. And that was a really big. Keep it simple. I mean, if you're in China, you need to process sometimes 1 billion records. That's
Okay.
not simple.
Okay.
So if you have too many variables, it's impossible. So you're forced there to make it simple and to keep it to simple structures. And that's what these people. How can you keep it simple? We're back to decisions.
Right.
You can only make these informed decisions if you know what you're doing. So what is really critical? I had this one participant at the business school looked at I think over 1,000 data points and came back and said I only need 3. We couldn't believe our eyes, but it was rock solid. 3. I mean, imagine if you would have asked IT to integrate 1,000 data points in fields. That's paralyzing IT. It's
Right.
horrible. But those 3, if you go to IT, they will jump in the air and go like, "Wow, oh yeah, today can do it."
Yeah. Things are very open, like when you jot down it into the simplest of metrics. And recently, you shared Chris Long's post about how AI engines are scrapping massive volumes of content, and even I was astonished to see that. But sending less and less traffic in return. Even I have done a video on LinkedIn about that. Back in the days, for every maybe like 8 searches, Google is sending 1 visit to the site, but now that ratio has been plummeted and atrophic. We have seen that stats given by Chris Long, like maybe like for every 16,000 prompts, every 16,000 data that the AI is giving to the user, only 1 they are sending as a visitor to your site. So given all this context, so if content is losing its value exchange, what can brands actually do to protect and monetize their digital assets?
Ooh, that is a very deep question, and I would need a crystal ball. I can tell you what I see now, and
Right.
there are basically two streams which are not excluding each other necessarily. One stream is, and this is what you saw in my post, that the likes of Business Insider and also Wall Street Journal, that it's decreasing
Right.
what they produce.
Yeah.
Yet ChatGPT is using it as a very strong content source. So but they're not bringing visitors back. So the loop is broken. So I think even the CEO of Cloudflare flagged this, also citing Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, like what should we do? And they're thinking about some kind of Spotify type of model,
Okay.
where just like musicians, you give them money.
Okay.
So that's one stream. There's another stream. You asked about brands.
Yeah.
The other stream is, and this is mind-blowing in our research with Scott and myself, we looked at the MarTech map, and there's one category exploding.
What is that?
And we could not believe what we saw. It's SEO,
Oh.
search engine optimization. And we're like, isn't that dead? What's happening here? So it's not dead, it's reinventing itself.
Reinventing. Yeah.
And you see now emerging some of the research of people saying, if I post about this content on Reddit and combine it with this and that and such and so, I show up more often in ChatGPT. So some people argue, okay, maybe the ratio of clicks is gone, but now it's maybe more brand awareness because you show up a lot. Of course, ChatGPT and the likes, also give you deep links. But that's an interesting take. So now it's really a game. How do you get there? It's thought leadership, true content, value content, and that's the other stream. Not necessarily mutually exclusive, but we'll see where it goes.
Totally, yeah.
And maybe to add to that, the two streams. I think this stream is more like, is content your product, like Wall Street Journal or an influencer? Or is it more like, no, it's promotion, like a brand. Then it's SEO.
Got it. That's indeed a very, things some days to foresee how it goes, and yeah, totally. And I do have some quick questions, like a rapid fire round. So if you have some
Hit me.
time, yeah, let me ask them as well. Mark. First one is regarding Martech cost patterns. I have often wondered, where do you think most of the real cost in Martech tends to gather over time? Is it an acquisition efforts that they are spending most, or is it sustaining long-term retention? Yeah, I can understand that this thing depends on industry or so many other factors, but I would be fascinated if you have seen any particular patterns by any industry or any stages of growth.
I see it by maturity. So
Okay.
acquisition is normally, not always, more immature, and the other way around. So
Right.
yeah, and that has to do with your integrated teams again. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. The second question is that now that more maps, I mean, marketing automation platforms are offering CDP capabilities natively, do you see this as a convergence trend, or how should marketing leaders think about building versus buying in that context?
That's all, or again, depending on your maturity
Yeah.
and the stage you are in. So, buy to learn. I would definitely, if you have already a map with it and it has a CDP and you have no experience, play with it.
Right.
Because then you're better equipped to buy a real CDP once you're there.
Agree. And how do you see the role of independent marketing tools evolving? Are they becoming essential to lifecycle marketing, or are they still just a nice to have, like play around and figure out things and use it if it works out or not? So how do you think about that? I mean, besides the incumbent platforms?
Well, I think that there's a lot of new tools coming up, and that's a lot of innovation. I call it atomization. So more atoms, Lego blocks to play with. And it's a really vital part of the MarTech ecosystem. It's really bringing things to life. Some of those features are acquired by the big guys, the incumbent ones. Some are copied, some are just dissolving because no. So, but that's a very important part. I only think it will become more what some people now call micro SaaS,
Okay.
which is AI agent based.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings me to the last question, Frans. And it's like a kind of a future-facing note. What's your boldest MarTech prediction for the next 2 years? Something you think most people are not yet seeing?
If you look at the MarTech map, many tools, but not used equally, not in the same frequency. So there's a long tail. The long tail of commercial tools, like most used and less used, but still viable. Beyond that, there's the hypertail, and that's all the tools produced inside companies, like microservices, AI agents, and whatever. That will explode. So homegrown maybe goes mainstream.
Okay, got it. So yeah, so Frans, this has been absolutely fantastic interview. What I truly appreciate about our conversation is that how you have managed to bring both incredible depth and humor to what often can be a very dry topic to discuss, but you have made it into a very enjoyable thing that even the borest marketer will listen to, I think. So you have taken, yeah. So you have taken the most complex MarTech strategy and made it not just understandable, but actually enjoyable to discuss. And thank you so much. And yeah, so the insights on customer journey mapping, the composable architectures, and yeah, so these were really insightful, friends. And I have to say that your perspective on AI agents and team restructuring really got me thinking, you know. And yeah, what's refreshing is that you didn't just give us the theory, but you have provided the examples and grounded it in a very candid way. That balance of being both analytical and accessible is rare, you know, that I'm seeing from you. And our viewers who want deep dive into Frans' work definitely can check out martechmap.com and our YouTube channel as well, and explore that incredible benchmarking database he has mentioned. And I'm sure that he's currently working on something even more incredible, the research that is truly invaluable for anyone for this series in the marketing strategy. Frans, thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and making this video series a lot less overwhelming and a lot more enjoyable. This conversation has been really a gift for me. And any final thoughts to our marketers before we wrap up?
Well, I'm flattered by your summary and what it means a lot to me because my goal is to make business life better.
Right.
And we're so many times overwhelmed by or even paralyzed by software. And that's not the purpose. That's even not what software vendors want, right? So if we educate ourselves a little bit more by looking at our customer and then reverse engineer, business life becomes a lot better. And then we don't have to implement for 9 months. We can just experiment, play. It's actually fun, and this is my biggest goal. It's fun to serve people.
Yeah.
It's really enjoyable. It's a great good, and that's what we're doing. But yeah, for a long time we've been focusing on this technology and said, sorry, you have to wait. We don't have to wait anymore. We can just now interact, communicate with people, and make our lives better. I think that's the goal, right?
So true, so true.
Well,
perfect.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's an honor, Frans. Thank you once again, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.